So as we've learned in the past colonial talks we've had, as from the Red Book, a large amount of those tokens and coins did not have anything to do with colonial America or that time. All right. So George Washington, born in Wakefield, Virginia colony, to Augustine Mary Ball. I can read this all to you, but you can read it, or I'll read it to you. Born on February 11th of 1731. Important date to remember, comes up in a moment. According to the Julian calendar. In 1752, Britain adopted the Georgian calendar, which is the birthday we now have of February 22nd. They moved the whole calendar like 152 days forward, which I can't even imagine doing. It's just totally weird. All of a sudden it was this day, and then you moved it, not 152, 300 and a year plus 9. Is that what it is? What's the difference between that date, 11 and 22? 11, thank you. So how many days in a year? 150, 165 plus 11?
165 plus 11 is
170, 376. Thank you. Man, oh man, I should have wrote that on here. They all of a sudden moved the whole thing calendar a year and 11 days. All right. His father died when he was 11. By 16, he'd moved on to live with his older brother Lawrence. He learned surveying. His brother Lawrence is the one that originally built the Mount Vernon estate that we're familiar with on the Potomac River. He later served with English forces in the French and Indian War. Later on, after which, being a successful officer with the British, he became, as we all are familiar, the general of the American armies during our Revolutionary War for independence. Which culminated with the surrender of the British General Cornwallis at Yorktown, which basically ended the Revolutionary War. The Treaty of Paris wasn't signed until '83. He was the chairman of the Constitutional Convention in 1787 and '88, and after ratification of the Constitution, he was named the first president of the United States on February 4th of 1789. This, just something to remember, is the first medal from a life portrait of George Washington, 1790. So many of the tokens you'll see in the Red Book are all dated from, most of them are dated 1783. This is the first token. It was made, to resemble the familiar British halfpenny. It, which circulated, in the colonies. It's the only known George Washington token to circulate in the 1780s. We know this because it is an undertype for a Massachusetts or New Jersey copper from 1787. I believe there also is a Massachusetts 1788 one that has it as an undertype where it was used. So when I say an undertype, that means it was used as the planchet. It was the piece of metal they used to strike a state coin later on. So they know it had to have been from before then. The obverse is the laurel wreath Washington in the English style of George III. And the reverse is Voci Populi, which is Voice for the People, with 1783 below. And a standing goddess behind a railing with 13 bars for the 13 colonies, or 13 original states, and a French fleur-de-lis representing the French, we suspect, representing the French role in the American Revolution. And it was made in quantity to circulate in the British Isles as well as America. When you read about it, there's theories that it was made early enough that it could have been used. It was uncertain how the treaties were going to go, and it could have been made to represent King George or George Washington. When you read different description of it, but we don't know who minted it, and there's no actual, direct writings, saying this is why it was done certain ways. And it's also there's talk about why in Georgius it's Roman numerals for 4. When you go into the Red Book, portrait pieces is a very big topic of them, and there's lots of portrait pieces. So we'll start with the first one, the military bust. Again, 1783. Most of these, or all of these, are made in England. Most of them are made after 1820. Some 18 late teens. This particular one, dies were designed from a painting by Edward Savage. They were cut by Thomas Wells Ingram, who worked at the Soho Mint and with other mints also. Many varieties exist. They were circulated in England and the Americas. And this example is a variety of the black 5D. If you get into the colonial books and look at varieties. Why did they circulate? They circulated in the Hard Times, with the Hard Times series in the 1830s. And after the French Indian Wars, there was a copper shortage, and some tokens came then. I think this came after that time frame. More portrait pieces would be the Unity States. This one is known to have come from the Soho Mint in Birmingham after 1800. It's a copy of our Drape bust cent, almost a direct copy, except for instead of United States, it's Unity States. We suspect that they did Unity instead of United to avoid a counterfeit charge. These circulated in England as halfpennies, and they circulated in U.S. as the cent value. That was the corresponding sizes. In Britain, that size was a halfpenny size. In the U.S., it was 1 cent size. And they also were circulating with the Hard Times series in the 1830s. Oh, absolutely. They circulated because you could make money making these.
Well,
you could make money
but
making
the
these
fact that they
coins.
were accepted
and-
as currency.
And yeah, you could make them and circulate them for more money than they cost to make,
Well, yeah,
as
no,
any
that's
token
obvious
ever
fact.
is worked.
But they were
Yes.
accepted because even though
And-
they
Yeah,
they weren't they certainly weren't British coins or anything like that. They were more commemorative of.
they were
American
commemorative of
Revolution.
Washington. Washington died in 1799,
Yeah.
and so there was a lot of commemorative stuff could sell. So they made it if they could sell it.
Yeah.
The next portrait piece is the double head, and it's an undated one, commonly called 1783, as with all of them. And portrait matches the other 1783 military bust. This one also is likely struck in Birmingham by Edward Thomas, as it matches other tokens that he's known to have done. And it is another one that circulated with the Hard Times token series. These first ones that we've just gone through, these portrait ones, they don't have a Dalton and Hamer numbering with the Condor token series, although I think a lot of Condor token people collect them with theirs. This next group, like this one, has a Dalton Hamer number, and I had that and should have put it up here. I don't have it with me, but I had some of those numbers on these. The 1793 ship halfpenny is a Condor token. The 1793 is an overdate of, oh, look, there's another error. Is an overdate of not 1972, but 1792. No 1792 coins are known. So, I believe, these dies were made, they were cut by hand. And when you did the numbers, they were done with a punch. And you got your die made, and you got to the end, and you went to put the date in it with your punch, and you got I mean, everything's done. The die is done. The ship is beautiful. You got your 17, you got your 9, looks great, and you got your 3, and you smack it, and damn it, that was a 2. You're not going to throw that thing away. You're going to polish it out as best you can, take the 3, put it there. I don't think these were made in 1792 and then remade in 1793. I think that was an absolute error, my theory, when they made it on the die cutter's bench, and cut immediately recut to the 3, and that's why none have ever shown, no 1792s have ever shown up existing. And there's nothing spectacular in 1792 or 17. Yeah, there's nothing in 1792 historically to be there for. The 1795 Great Half Penny is also the Connor token, another Dalton Hamer numbers. So it's an advertising piece from the firm Clark and Harris of London. They're attributed to Thomas Wyan. They're struck at Kimpson's, Birmingham, England. Mint. They were produced to circulate, like all Connor tokens, as good for tokens. Reverse it says payable by Clark and Harris, 13 Wormwood Street, Bishopsgate. These tokens, along with these tokens, these didn't show up in the Americas until in probably the 1900s, maybe late 1800s as coin collecting advanced. But these are things that came here strictly for collectors only. They were never here to circulate. They were only brought here for collectors. Liberty and Security penny, also Connor token. These were struck as halfpence and pennies. In 1795, they circulated in England. The edge is kind of a neat quote for America, an asylum for the oppressed of all nations. And again, they also came here only for collectors, probably primarily after the 1900. Our mint made a lot of centennial coins for Washington's 100th anniversary of his death. 1899, the mint made a whole bunch of stuff, and I suspect that prompted a Washington phase in collecting, and that's probably a time frame that a lot of this stuff showed up. Washington success tokens, fun discussions here. They're all undated, possibly 1793. That's my belief. There's small and large size ones known. They're struck in brass, so that indicates it was not a copper coin or token to circulate. The reverse, image of Washington. The reverse is inscribed "Success to the United States" with 15 stars. So 15 stars instead of 13. Kentucky became the 15th state in June of 1792, and Tennessee became the 16th state in 1796. Washington's second inauguration was 1793. I believe these are a inauguration medal. The earliest listings of success tokens is a rubbing from 1830, kept by the Portsmouth Athenian Library in New Hampshire. There's early numismatic writings and several sales in the late 1800s that indicate that these tokens are connected to Washington's second inauguration in March of 1793. The December 1885 sale of the Matthews collection, that catalog lists it as "Success to the United States, designed and struck by Jacob Perkins for the citizens of Boston for the occasion of the second inauguration of Washington as president." That is the only writing I found that says anything about who made it, or where it was made, or that it was made for Boston. And so if you print it, it becomes gospel. That's early web page, you know. There are some people that have even suggested that they were game counters. Game counters, you know, generally have a value on them, and they just look different. I have a group of a pretty good collection of game counters. They're later, and they just look different. The success tokens are one of my more favorite pieces, and of course the Georgia Triumphant, because I know it circulated in early America, and these have, in my opinion, these are for the second inauguration, so they have a cool history. The rest of them are fun tokens that were just made to make a buck. They weren't made by the U.S. Mint. They were made, and there you go. There's my resources that you wanted to know.
You can pay me later.
Yeah, and but these ones are my preferred favorite of all of this group, and we could have gone into Washington. The Washington series, as for collectors of Washington, goes from U.S. quarters all the way back. I have a large Washington collection of stuff, of everything, from the Centennial Death medals, restrike medals from the U.S. Mint. There's tons of U.S. Mint stuff for Washington, and there is tonnage and tonnage of privately minted Washington stuff from every coin club and everything you can imagine if you want to go into that portal. But that is a fun rabbit hole to go into because it's all cheap. You know, that stuff. You go into the more modern stuff, and you can go into everything. There's some really cool American Washington stuff. You go into the peace medals and the original death medals, but then you're talking about some trading in your cars and houses for that stuff. Questions on this?